Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to E-Heroes. 33 episodes ago. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but we had Scott Paton on, and we talked about Udemy and all the courses that he's created. Well, I brought Scott back because he's a world traveler. We kind of touched on it on the previous episode, but we're going to dive deep in and see where it's taken him, and we're still kind of living in COVID, and kind of get his perspective on how to travel and not have to deal with all the regulations. So welcome, Scott, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Rob. I'm happy to be here. And I have to deal with all the regulations. I don't have any underground railway trains that are taking me from place to place or anything like that going on.
Oh, I guess the interview is over then.
It's been an interesting let's just say 2 years, because last year I was in Colombia and I was going to go to where I am now in Ecuador, and I was actually going to come here to look after Chloe and Chloe's brother. Chloe she's camera shy.
You fly all the way from Canada just to watch cats.
Yeah, just well, you have to do more than
I'm in the wrong business.
So yeah, a year ago, March, I was going to come here, and 3 days before they closed the border, and I ended up spending 9 months in Medellin, Colombia, and I feel guilty about it because as the world was crying and screaming and gnashing their teeth, I was on the 9th floor of an 8th-floor apartment block with a huge terrace, a hammock, and a nice place to put my head at night, and an amazing view of the city.
Just
I know.
Dreadful. Yeah.
And talking about like rules and regulations, Canadians are not allowed to stay more than 6 months in Colombia, and I stayed 9. So I was like very proud because I'm one of like 200 people out of 7 billion that have ever stayed longer than they should have and not been like thrown in jail for it because of the whole pandemic issue. But there was a fear that came up because when I left home 5 years ago, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to go to Europe and to Africa and South America, and I'd been to those places, and I had a few more I wanted to go to. I still have some more places that I really want to go to before I, kind of settle down. And I had this, oh my God, they've closed all the borders everywhere. You can't travel, and how am I going to achieve these goals? And then I took a couple breaths and I said, since the beginning of mankind, we have gone from place to place to place. And there have been times where it's more difficult, like during world wars and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, for the last 5,000 or longer, 100,000 years, however long we've been here, we've wandered from place to place to place. And I said, there's going to be some way that I can do that. And I left Colombia, I went to Mexico, and then I think I went into the United States, and then I went home into Canada for 3 or 4 months, and then I went to Hawaii when it was okay to go to Hawaii, and then I was back in Mexico and back in Colombia, and now I'm back here. And
were you in Florida too?
I was in Florida, yes.
Yeah.
And where I've been more than me. Yeah. I just blur. I have to get
every time I go to Facebook, you're somewhere else, and I'm like, he hasn't been back in Canada for like ever. Did Trudeau kick him out or what? I mean, he's all over the world.
Made it very difficult to go home, and it's part of it too is like the attitude. Like when when I look back at home, I see this attitude, and I don't really like it. And it's projected by the media predominantly, and it's just like, well, but then it comes down to like, what do you want to do? Like in my case, my goal for next year is to get to Africa. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. If they close everything, whatever happens this winter, right? If they close everything down and we're back in panic state, and pilots are having clots in their hearts and emergency landings, then I probably don't want to go on a 12-hour flight across the Atlantic.
Oh, nice. As long as you can swim, right?
As long as you can, it's a long
So,
swim.
let me tell you, let me ask you, how do you deal with, the paperwork? I mean, because I know when I get a passport or something that it gets mailed to me, you're always traveling. How do you get mail?
What mail?
You don't, yeah. So,
Everything's electronic. So when you talk about paperwork, I think of paperwork getting in and out of countries. So there's a number of websites that and usually it's just Google, visa entry Colombia. And then it'll say, oh, Colombia doesn't need the PCR test anymore. All you have to do is fill out this. And then I focus on it usually a week before I go. So in 2 weeks, I'm going back to Colombia. And um, and I've already checked, and it says, yeah, like there's some sort of form you have to fill out. There's something you have to sign in online, and then you go through and no problem.
and most
So
of these countries that you're in have paperwork, or not paperwork, but online forms that are in English, or do you
yeah,
understand multiple languages?
now that's a really, really interesting question, because when I was in Colombia last year, once they sort of said, okay, if you're a visitor, you've got, we're not quite as an emergency situation as before. There are flights out. So you have 1 month to either get an extension or leave. So that was interesting, because I was originally planning to get the extension. And so they had an online form, and it was in English, and there was a version in Spanish, of course, because it's a Spanish speaking country. And the English version didn't work. You'd get to a certain point, and you push a button, you go to another point, you push a button, you get another point, nothing happens, right? And of course, there's Facebook groups of like expats in Colombia and expats in Ecuador, and you always join those, because there's always someone who's like a immigration lawyer who gives you good, easy answers to stuff, and say, and then when it gets harder, you go see him about, well, I actually want to live here or whatever, and he'll help you, and you already feel like you know him, right? So I went in, and they said, yeah, the English one doesn't, but the Spanish does. It's like, oh, I can't read Spanish. But I'd done the English one so many times that I knew what the answers were. It's line 3 on this one, and it's check line 3 here and line 4 here, and then of course it worked. But then I decided not to stay, and I left. So it didn't really matter.
And when we got before we started recording, I complimented you on your Wi-Fi, because you're in a foreign country. You probably have better Wi-Fi there than you did in Canada.
I actually did, and I was but where I was staying in Canada, when I was in Canada, was on a lake, and it was slightly in the country, and TELUS, the telecom people, said, it's not really worth us to run a fiber optics there. So it was 5 meg up and down was the fastest we could get, and we never really got that fast. So I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how bad it is. But you're right, like Eastern Europe has super, super fast Wi-Fi. I could not believe it. And I'd go to upload a video, and if I blinked, it was uploaded, and it was magic. It was awesome. But I think, if you're someone who wants to travel, you just don't buy into the fear. But the thing is there are certain places you can and certain places you can't, right? And things are opening up for people that have decided they want to get the vaccine, and so you have more options. And if you decide you don't want to get it, then you have fewer options. And but the thing is that, like, let's just take Colombia for an example. Colombia is a lot of it is in the Andes, and it has a lot of different microclimates, if I can put it that way. It actually has a desert. And I could probably spend the next 5 years only in Colombia and still be thinking, oh my God, I want to go see this and I want to go see that. It's an incredibly beautiful country. Now, I think generally speaking, unless you're in the industrial area of a major city, that most countries have a lot of beauty. I've never really been to a country where I thought, this whole thing is really ugly, because there's always beautiful areas. So if I really wanted to go to, say, China, you know, I would, there's desire and there's reality. Okay. The reality is China and Canada are not friendly right now. Like, like they're like the schoolyard bully. And it might be a little bit better like today, but a couple of weeks ago, before we shipped the Huawei CFO back, who we'd been keeping under house arrest for the last 3 years, that the Chinese, of course, reciprocated by charging two Canadian tourists of something, and they were in jail for the last 3 years. So I look at that sort of scenario and I think, I don't know that, China would be a really good place for me to go to. So you have to kind of look at where you want to go, and then what's the situation if you decide to go. And there may be places where they say, you need to have 3 PCR tests a day for the first 7 days, and then you have to go to the doctor and do this, and then you have to be in quarantine, and then you start looking at all of these regulations or rules or imposements or obstacles, and you just think it's not worth it when you can go to a place like Costa Rica or Mexico and they don't even check anything. And there's so many amazing places to see in those countries. So I'm kind of, I kind of look at my travel now as like, I really want to go to Portugal, but Portugal doesn't let a plane in, so I'm not going to go. So do I cry and scream and gnash my teeth, or I just say, well, Spain will let me in, and it's right beside it, and it's got nice places to go, so maybe I'll go there. And that's really different than 2 years ago, because 2 years ago it was like, well, I could go anywhere and not even think about it.
But you really did convert your home-based business into a laptop lifestyle where you can go anywhere. I think my concern, and maybe a lot of other people who are listening, when I travel, it's only a couple weeks at a time. So I go to Germany or Italy, or I've been to Madrid. It's banking. You are constantly on the go. So, how do you deal with banking? I mean, the fees to constantly tap ATMs is ridiculous.
Well, some people, they like to go to the bar and have 5 beer and chicken wings, and I don't. And so, so banking fees and taxis are things I don't think about, because I can't do anything about it, right? Mm-hmm. Some banks will charge me 50 cents and some banks will charge me $3, and it's kind of like, that's
like taking credit cards. You just have to accept the fee.
That's right. You just accept the fee. So there are things that you can do something about. There are things that you can't. And once you know the difference, it's just kind of like, this is part of my lifestyle, is I go to an ATM and I don't even look. Like, there's going to be a $3 charge on my thing, but I didn't have a $6 beer tonight, so I'm $3 ahead.
Yeah, but there's always that currency conversion that gets tapped at the end of the month, or whenever you want to pick up, the local money.
Yeah, and it's always pennies, right? Like, I don't have, like, some months I don't have any rent. Like, one of the ways that I travel is
no rent.
Like, basically, pick a number that you think would be a fair rent.
A fair rent. Well, my mortgage is $1,200, but I've heard other people are paying $2,000, $3,000 a month. That's just crazy.
Yeah. So and when I say rent, I'm including mortgages. Okay. So whether it's a $900 a month mortgage, or an $1,800 a month mortgage, or a $3,000 a month mortgage, or same with the rent, there's some money that we're all putting out, unless we own. Even if we own our house, we've got property taxes. So when you live somewhere, there's an expense. And I figured out how to basically get rid of it. And when I travel, so let me back up for a second. One of my core values is contribution. Okay. So when you said on Facebook, hey, anybody want to be on my podcast? Let me know. I said, yeah, I'd love to be on your podcast and contribute to your audience. Right. And so when I'm traveling, it's if you travel and you're staying in a hotel the whole time, number one, it's boring. Number two, you're not really experiencing the country. And number three, you're not contributing, you're consuming. Okay. So there's a site called Trusted House Sitters, which basically matches people who want to travel with people who want to look who also want to travel, people who want to travel away from their homes with people that don't mind living in their homes, right? So right now I'm in a 3-bedroom condo in Cuenca, Ecuador, and there's 2 cats. And the lady who lives here is American, and she went back to Boston to see her husband who has Alzheimer's. I almost said dementia. And so she goes back for a couple months. She's going to spend time with him because he still knows her, he misses her and all the rest of it, right? And she loves living here, not there. The lifestyle here is more affordable than there and all those sort of things. But she needed to take him back. I guess there's no place here that would look after him as well as in Boston. I say Boston, it's near there somewhere. So she's got to leave, but who's going to look after her cats? So this site matches us up, and I say, hey, I'll look after. In fact, I was coming here a year ago, March, when they closed the border, and I couldn't. We kept in touch, and I said, hey, I'm going to be in Northern and South America. If you know, let me know what your plans are. She says, oh, I really want to go for 2 months to see my husband. I said, great. And I block off my calendar, and I'm here. So I'm here not just living in somebody's house for free. I'm also here looking after their cats, giving them love, and letting them sit on my lap and purr and all those sort of good things, and I'm in the community. So when I walk down the street, I'm going to what would be like a local bar, or I'm going to a local restaurant. I'm not going to the Hilton restaurant sort of thing, right? And I'm seeing the local people, and I'm buying food from the local markets, and so I get this real feel of an Ecuadorian lifestyle for 2 months, as opposed to, I saw the cathedral, I saw the river, I saw the waterfall, took the pictures, and I'm off to the next thing. So, and I need that because, like you said, I arranged my business so that I can do it anywhere. And what I need is good Wi-Fi, and I need a place that I can be in, and I mean, I guess a hotel would work, but it's really nice to be kind of in a home and be comfortable and be settled. Right. And so I feel like I have short lives, 2-3 month lives, because I'm 2 or 3 months in Colombia, or I'm 2 or 3 months in Tunisia, or I'm 2 or 3 months in Kenya. And so you get a real feel for the place. It makes for very slow travel because, there are all these, I want to go on a safari, or I want to go see, the falls in Brazil, where in Argentina, wherever that falls are, or I want to see Machu Picchu. And so there's all these places that I want to go to. But when you only go to 6 places a year or 8 places a year, and there's 200 of them or 2,000 of them, it takes a while.
Now, when you're at these places, do you rent a car? Do you use theirs? Do you just get a taxi?
It all depends. I can go across this town. 700,000 people in this city. I can go across town in a taxi for $3. So it really makes, yeah. And Colombia is the same way. Like there's millions. Like every second car is yellow, right? So it's you walk out in the street, wave your arm, some guy stops, takes you wherever it is. It's I was at this dinner, and I was walking home, and I get 3/4 of the way home, and it's kind of like nature's calling, like, oh my God, what did I eat that just ran through me? And so, but there happened to be a taxi there. So I said, well, rather than risk it, I jump in the taxi. And I know if I was Ecuadorian, it's 50 cents, right? But I gave him $1, and he looks at me and he goes, 2. And I thought, I am not going to sit here, at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, arguing with a taxi driver over $1. Here's a second $1. And I got home safe and everything was fine. But it's, once you get, and I know like the same trip in Vancouver, where I live, is $10. It's $5 just to sit, and then they start charging you, right? So a lot of things are really, really inexpensive. And so that but it's like anything else. Like in Canada, it's less expensive if you go to the grocery store and buy all your groceries and cook yourself. More expensive if you go up there all the time. Well, here, same thing. It's really cheap if you buy all the food yourself. And the restaurants are far less expensive. I'd say 25% the cost of a meal in Canada, doing the same thing. So and then I look at all of these things, like I'm not paying $1,700 in rent. I can buy 2 bags of groceries for, $5, $6 that'll last me a week or so. And then, so I don't worry about the exchange rate. I don't worry about the bank fees because I can't do anything about those things. And I'm saving a lot of money. So I look at so basically for 2 months, I pay no rent.
Yeah, and the Canadian dollar or even the US dollar will go a lot further in those countries than what you're typically used to. So,
Yeah.
I know in Mexico it's what, 20 to 1, and so it goes a long way.
It does go a long way. And then when I do the traveling, because I'll spend a couple of days in Bogota when I get to Colombia, and then I'll go someplace else, is I look at it and say, well, these are kind of like my little getaways. I've saved some money. Now I can treat myself to a nice hotel in Bogota, and I don't have to stay in a hostel or anything like that. And there are lots of.
You ever get your visa flagged? I mean, your credit card flagged because you're in a foreign country?
No, but what I do, actually, American Express is amazing in terms of service and everything else. You can complain about other things about them, but I never have a problem with them. And then I have a MasterCard, and then I just email my MasterCard bank and just say, this date to this date, I'm in this country. And so, and they've actually, after 5 years, they're used to it.
Yeah, I know.
They almost what country are you in now?
Yeah. And I travel a lot myself, but mostly in the United States. And I told my bank where I was going, and they said, oh, you don't need to tell us anymore. That our systems know. Yeah, I get down to Florida and they flag my card. I'm like, dude, I told you. And when I went to Germany, I never told anybody. I just went, and they never flagged me for nothing. And it's like, okay, that's kind of strange, but yeah.
You remind me of a phone call I got from my bank when I was in Vancouver many, many, many years ago. And I get this phone call. I go, hello. And they go, hi, this is, blah, blah, blah bank. Yeah. And we were calling to check on, and it would almost have sounded like a spam call if I'd known you then. And we just, it's basically, is your last 4 numbers this? I go, yeah. And they say, okay, did you buy perfume in Paris yesterday? And they know they're calling me in Canada, right? They go, no, we didn't think so. Okay, that's good. We're taking it off. So if you see the charge, know that, in a couple of days, there'll be a reversal. And you should probably go into your bank with your card and get a new one.
And you're like, I'm in Bogota. I can't do that.
Fortunately, at that time, I was 2 blocks away from my bank, and but they said you were in a restaurant, and somebody got the information they needed, and they charged $50. It was really weird, it was a $50 bottle of perfume in Paris.
So when I travel, we all have our cell phones, but I haven't incurred any international calls because I just throw everything in airplane mode and just jump off of people's Wi-Fi everywhere.
That's what I do. Yeah, I have a Skype phone number that follows me around, and a Skype subscription. And
oh my God, a Skype number! I haven't used Skype in years.
I'm on Skype every day.
Kind of Facebook has replaced all that, so it's I guess I don't know if the audio quality is as good as Skype, but.
I'm not often on a call on Skype, but I use the chat a lot.
You don't use WhatsApp?
I'm moving over to WhatsApp grudgingly.
Yeah, so that way Facebook can monitor everything that you do.
That's right. Yeah, that's not why. It's just I have this thing about, because I don't ever have a SIM card in my phone. I do have a phone.
It's funny because the only people that WhatsApp me are Canadians.
Oh, is that right?
It's
Oh
funny.
dear.
Yeah, and I have clients in Australia and UK, and they don't even use WhatsApp. They Facebook me, but only the Canadians WhatsApp me. I just think it's funny.
It is funny because I don't have anyone Canadian on my WhatsApp.
They get scammers. But it's and we could talk all day about traveling, but you set your business up in such a way that it allows you the freedom to go anywhere at any time, and that's what I think is truly amazing. I mean, and it was just from creating these little courses that you put on Udemy, and now it's granted you freedom to do whatever.
Yeah. And I would drop the Udemy part. What it really was I found something that I could be outstanding in, right? So 1 million students on Udemy, it gets people's attentions, right?
Yeah.
1 million followers on Twitter, 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Like if you find something that you are at the top of the heap in, you may not be the number one. I mean, who ever knows if you're number one or whatever, right? There's lots of people making more money on Udemy, and there's lots of people with more students than me on Udemy. But you hit a certain level, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, like you did that. Yeah. And then how do you leverage that? So a lot of the work that I do is, in fact, I would say all the work I do with my clients has nothing to do with Udemy. Like I'll bring it in every once in a while, like, yeah, we should do a course or whatever, because that's a great lead gen. But all the work is it's kind of like you got the reputation, people pay attention, you must know something, what else? And then you drive it towards whatever the client needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if I was a Udemy producer only, I'd be telling everybody, yeah, okay, let's make a course, but that's not necessarily the best thing for them at this time, right? So but so I have a whole skill set, and then it's like, it's the old cliche about the hammer and everything's a nail, right? But because you have all these different tools that you learned becoming number one or high, an expert in whatever, like everything that I needed to know in order to get the success I got at Udemy, I can apply this part of that to this and this part of that to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have this whole tool set that I bring to the client, and then they're like, oh, this is great. And then of course, if you know about customer service and you have a pleasing personality, as Napoleon Hill talked about,
Yeah,
or you just have a personality.
Yeah, I have the personality. I don't have the other stuff.
I have a friend in Vancouver who's Chinese, and she is rude. And she is a property manager, and she manages 50 doors around there, right? And she'll talk to the owners rudely, but but she does a great job. And so they say to her, you're really rude, and we don't like the way that you talk to us, but you do a really, really good job. And aside from that, we really like everything else. So, you're going to be our property manager for the rest of our lives. And she'll tell me this and we'll be laughing, right? So, it's also authentic, right? You have to be authentic, be who you are, and then, develop the relationships and then perform. And it's no problem, right?
Well, it's a problem to the people that really don't like you, and for me it was I had to gear up, so I wrote all these great books, and a lot of them are, people are like, oh wow, I just knew that you did sarcasm, and I didn't know you did all these other books with podcasting and social media and life lessons and weight loss and on and on and on. And so now they're discovering all these other books, and then they come back and they said they're not funny. I said, I know. This is why I'm teaching people through my Rob Versus books, because I can teach them business. I can teach them life lessons through a story or a series of stories that's funny. And I'm using one to lead into another. But the whole Rob Versus books started out as me just educating somebody, which was Rob Versus the Scammers. And they
Right.
turned into this whole series of books that, you know, people are like, this is just awesome. But now I'm basically using them as a pre-qualifier. If you like humor, you like sarcasm, and you need my help, you know, these books are great for you. But if you don't like sarcasm, forget it. You're not going to appreciate my help at all.
Right. Right.
You know,
I
so
think the Rob versus the Scammers is something everybody should read. And if you've got grandparents and parents,
yeah.
you know, who are over 50, get it in their hands, because they're the ones that are targeted. And, you know, I gave it to my mom, and then she tells me, like, these people were calling about this and that. And I go, what'd you do? Oh, I hung up. Read the book. I saw the script.
Yeah, and I've been contemplating making Rob versus the Scammers a free book, just to get it out there, to get it into more hands, to educate more people. Not because I want them to laugh, but because that was the prime book. That was, you know, that has more education in it when it comes to, you know, not getting ripped off by fraudsters.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I often think there's two parts to money. One part is getting it, and then what's sometimes even harder is hanging on to it.
yeah, because once the scammers get your credit card information or get your bank information, all your money's gone. It gets instantly wired across seas, and you know, our governments can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and the bank's not going to put it back.
No, once you give someone access to your account, the bank's not going to do anything. And it's sad, you know, there needs to be more safeguards. And I know over in the UK, they have, I think, a little bit more safeguards when it comes to PIN numbers and this and that at ATMs. But phone calls, I think everybody kind of gets screwed on those if
Right.
they give in to the scammers. So, and you know, the U.S. government was supposed to cut down on scam calls, and they're supposed to. They have this concept called shaken and stir, which was supposed to deter the scammers from getting through. But I get more scam calls now than I ever did.
Oh, wow.
So,
Well, you need to get a Skype number. I get hardly any.
yeah, I have one. I just haven't used it in years. You know, it's kind of like, you know, using a fax machine.
Ow! Oh, got me.
I haven't used a fax machine in 21 years.
I don't remember the last time I used a fax machine.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, you want me a fax? What century do you think I'm in?
Yeah.
You know, and
Where do you live?
yeah, where do you live? I live in the future. Yeah, it's funny. But anyway, for all the listeners out there, I want you to follow Scott. I don't know where you're going to follow him. You can follow his adventures. It's kind of like, you know, where's Waldo, or where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? This would be where's Scott. And and he'll rub sand in your face, and he'll show you where all the places he gets to go and you don't, and it's awesome. So Scott, where do they find you? Seriously.
The best place actually is Facebook, and it's Scott A. Paton. Go facebook.com, Scott A. Paton. And if you're really, really pretty and you've only got one picture on your profile and you have nothing else on your profile, it's unlikely I will accept you, because I'm pretty sure that, and you set up your account yesterday, but
So
it's always a good idea to say, I'm a friend of Rob's, and I'll accept you. If
I don't know if that will get you anywhere.
Are you kidding?
So
If they're a friend of yours, they're a friend of mine.
So make sure you set your account up a couple days
A
before,
couple days ago, yeah.
not just the day before.
So the point is that I had 5,000 friends, and I thought, this is garbage, because I don't know who, 3,000 of these are. And for about a month and a half, I had this program, and I would just find 50 people and delete them. And I got it down to half, about 2,500. I don't know what it is. I think it's around 2,500 friends or something. And it's a huge relief. It's like, oh, because I felt obliged to, send birthday gifts,
Yes.
birthday greetings
I didn't
every.
get any gift from you.
And,
I got nothing.
yeah. So yeah. So
Yeah, I don't even
I-
respond to people's birthday things anymore. I don't
yeah,
have
I just
time.
think that's if you're my friend, and there's some I give you the opportunity for interaction because you can when basically it's like two whatever the blow things are, and then a cake emoticon and a present one, and then two more of those blow things, and then I copy and paste it. It doesn't take me too much time, and then and then people like it or they say thanks or whatever, and then there's this opportunity for some sort of interaction at least once a year, twice a year, because I hope you do it back, right? But
I usually go, oh, it's your birthday, delete, unfriend, block.
I used to do that. Oh, it's your birthday, I don't know who you are, delete. And I thought that's a really slow way to do it. So I just got rid of half of my non-friends.
You were like Thanos, and you just went.
Right, snap the finger. I wish it was that fast. And then I've had a few people that message me say, hey, how come you unfriended me? Are you mad at me? I go, oh no, I unfriended 2,500 people, and I guess you just got caught in the net. Because you want people to interact a little bit, right? I mean, if you're on my friends list, you're not interacting with me at all, then I don't know who you. I mean, unless I meet you, like you never have to interact with me because we interact, right? But if we didn't talk to each other for 6 months, I wouldn't delete you from my friends list because I know you. So if there's the people there's the people you interact that you kind of know online.
Must try harder to get him to delete me. Oh, you heard that? I'm sorry.
I love the people who say if you don't agree with me, delete me and block me, or if you haven't interacted with me, delete me and block me. I'm too lazy. I'm like, there's no friggin' way I'm doing your work for you, dude. If you don't want me on your list, you block me. I'm not blocking you. And I'm on to the next. That's what I think when I see those, right? Like, no way am I going to do something. You're not going to tell me what to do.
Well, there you go. Don't delete Scott. Let him do it for you. Anyway, we could talk all day, and I'm sure we could, but I'm sure the listeners don't want to listen to all this. Although it's good
They're
stuff.
Rioting in the streets. More. In Spanish, it's más.
No, they're going no más. Anyway, go find Scott on Facebook. He's got plenty of room now to accept more friends. And
that's right.
We'll see you guys on the next episode. Adios.
Bye-bye.
No más.